Today I'm going to teach you guys how to properly hit your 1 rep max, and we're starting right now. So this video was requested by Sarah Kelly in the comments, and coincidentally my deadlift partner in this video is your sister Sarah, who's also my fiance. So today we're going to find out if men or women are stronger. Just joking, of course. But for real though, you guys are going to learn today how to properly 1 rep max, and I'm going to show you through these clips of Hannah and I going for our 1 rep max on deadlifts. Now we don't train for solely strength, we're both mostly power bodybuilders, which means training compound movements pretty heavy but in hypertrophy ranges. But in this particular workout we are going for that 1 rep max. You'll notice that while we're both doing sumo, we do 2 different setups here. Hannah is setting up from the bottom and I set up from the top. Now it should be noted that you want to do a proper warm-up. We don't have it in the video because we didn't really do one. A proper warm-up consists of cardio, but not in the way that you would think. You're not trying to really up your heart rate too much. You really want to take the muscles through a dynamic warm-up. A good way to do this would be on a stair climber. This way you're activating the quads and more importantly the glutes, which are the driving force of this exercise. So without worrying about that portion of the warm-up, you'll notice that I perform a warm-up with 135, but the max amount of reps that I do this whole workout is 6 at a time. I'm not looking to train for hypertrophy and really fatigue my muscle spindles before going for strength. And the same applies with Hannah, who starts with just the bar. Both of these weights for us are pretty light relative to our maxes. And because of this, we feel we can get our muscles properly engaged before going heavier and heavier. So when it comes to these weight jumps, it may seem like going from 135 to 245 here is pretty heavy. It's 110 pounds of a jump, but I know I can do this very easily and I'm not going for very high reps. I'm actually just making sure that I get my speed down. So while these reps may look pretty fast, especially on the concentric, this is actually normal time. I'm practicing being able to be explosive through all of my sets because this is going to be very important when it comes to my heaviest sets. As for Hannah, because her max isn't quite as high as mine, I still want her muscles to get warmed up and be ready to go for heavier sets. So while she does 135, she actually stays at this weight for 2 sets in order to get the muscles as warmed up and ready to go as she can. So you might be wondering why exactly we do 2 different styles of deadlift, with me setting up from the top and her setting up from the bottom. Well, it really depends on what you want to go for. Personally, when I set up from the bottom on a deadlift, I find that my grip strength gives out a lot quicker. But then again, setting up from the top, you have to go over a huge checklist of things to remember when doing the deadlift. In one explosive bout, you have to remember to keep your lats tight, to push your knees out, to tighten your core, to keep your chin tucked, to keep your chest up. There's a whole lot you gotta remember at once. This is why it's important to do all of your sets like this if you're going to do the deadlifts like this. Because say I set up from the bottom on my sets of 135 and 245 and 335 as you see here. I might even slow the movements down a little too much, especially for my heavier sets, which will then fatigue my adductors in particular, and this will make it a lot harder to be fluent when I do this explosive motion in the later sets. And again, you'll notice that I stick to about 5 repetitions. However, this is only temporary because as the weight gets heavier, you want to decrease your repetitions in order to not burn yourself out, both in the musculature and neurologically. And it should be noted that for Hannah, not only does she have 1 broken finger, but she's also not using a proper weightlifting belt. Sure, in the later sets, she does use a Velcro belt, but it's too big. So just imagine she's not wearing a belt. Wearing a belt is important to be able to brace your core and give yourself a couple extra pounds on the lift. And also, while it may seem like we are quickly moving through our sets, thanks to the magic of video editing, it is important for these strength exercises, it is important that you give yourself about 3 to 5 minutes between sets to recover and be able to perform your next set optimally. So here I move to 425 on my deadlift, and I perform it for a double. 2 reps is easy, but it's not necessary to do more than this. It's important not to tire yourself out, but it's also important for the body to continue to be accustomed to the weight increases. This is also the last of the big jumps of weight for me. This is where you should start to just focus on doing singles, even if the singles are easy, because again, you don't want to take away any energy that you might need for the heavier sets. So now we're getting into smaller increases. This increase is 50 pounds. Here I complete my first single at 475. Now I do believe that if I tried to do this from setting up at the bottom, I'd have a lot more difficulty holding on to the bar. In fact, that's another thing I'd like to note here. This is when I get into doing an over-under grip. Grip is important when doing deadlifts, but some grips are definitely better for high strength than others. I performed most of my sets starting out with an over-over grip. This is one of the hardest grips to continue to maintain. So as I get into my heavy singles, I switch to over-under and increase my grip strength quite a bit here. Now moving back to Hannah, I'm sure she wouldn't mind me putting this in the video, but she did fail 225 twice before hitting this one. And even though the volume on these clips is muted, let's just say that she grunted before doing it. And she does this to get all the air out of her lungs so that she can fully brace for core without having a proper weightlifting belt. So it's important to note that because of this big checklist that the deadlift or any strength compound that you do is, this sort of builds into the concept that strength is a neurological process. Performing lower reps at a higher rate requires less of your muscle spindles to be active and more of your neuromuscular junctions to be active. This means you need the brain power to be strong, but not in an intelligence way, obviously. You just want your brain and your motor neurons to have the efficiency to continue to go through these very heavy bouts of exercise. But what this ties into is the fact that you can truly psych yourself out before a lift. Trying to remember all of the little tidbits of information when it comes to perfectly performing a deadlift, trying to remember that whole checklist, can, believe it or not, cause you to tire your brain and make you fail the lift. But once she had the whole checklist down sooner, she's able to complete this lift. And because she didn't have a proper weightlifting belt, she does max out at 225 here, which is pretty dang good, but I still feel like she's got more in her. So weighing in at 140 pounds, Hannah finishes her deadlift 1 rep max at 225 pounds, with a broken finger and without a weightlifting belt that fits her. I think that's pretty good. Heading back on my end, I'm starting to wear down a little bit. As you start to wear down, it's important that you make weight jumps that are a little smaller. I think from 15 to 30 pounds is appropriate on these bigger leg movements, such as squat and deadlift. So this is a 25-pound increase to 500 pounds. So I'm being completely honest, I like my round numbers. 500 is pretty round. Plus a 25-pound increase works just fine for me. And it's not easy. I have to grunt pretty loud and empty my lungs to get it, but we got it and we had a little bit more in the tank. When you get to this point where you finish a single and you feel like there's a little bit more in the tank, that usually means that your next set should probably be your last unless you find a new gear. For me, I added 20 more pounds, which actually seemed like quite a bit and I thought I wasn't going to get it. But after about a 4 to 5 minute rest break and about 1 to 2 minutes of standing over the bar and trying to hype myself up again, I'm able to max out at 520 pounds. By the way, for those of you who think, oh no, that's only 410 pounds, the first weight on the bar is 100 pounds. I was trying to save room on the bar, maybe get a little bend to it. But yeah, so weighing in at 205 pounds, I maxed out at 520 pounds on deadlift. And I should really add in that if I tried to set this up from the bottom, I don't think I would have been able to get it. I don't think my grip strength is quite good enough. And I also feel that by setting up from the top and doing it explosively, it's almost like my grip strength doesn't even register. It's not until I lock out the movement that my hands are like, whoa, dude, this is way too heavy for you. But by then I've already completed it. So if any of you guys feel like you had the same issue, I'd actually practice setting up your deadlifts from the top and trying to perform them very explosively. But anyways, we have finished, and now you're probably thinking, what next? Because you don't want to just stop your workout after maxing out. You gotta make sure you do the accessory work, especially if your low back or hips feel a little tight. And I think the trick to do that is to target the glutes for high volume. Here at the glute ham raise, I'm actually doing weighted back extensions. And you notice that I'm not totally hyperextending my back. I'm getting a little bit of a contraction in the low back. Pretty much the entirety of the tension in this movement is in my glutes. And by doing this, by working the glutes, you sort of take off the tension that's in your low back and in the hips. It's not foolproof, especially if you seriously injure yourself. But if things are a little tight, this is a good way to relieve tension. And the second way to do that after completing your accessory exercise is to cool down on the treadmill walking at an incline. By walking at the incline, taking long strides, you get a lot of activation in the posterior chain, and you take your hip flexors through their full range of motion. And this will restore them to their optimal length, and therefore taking more tension out of the lower back by releasing the pull on them that is associated with shortened hip flexors. So after a heavy deadlift session, if you feel that something just doesn't feel quite right, try walking at an incline on the treadmill to cool down. It's not foolproof, but it could help you quite a bit, and it could save you from getting seriously hurt. But anyways guys, that is how you optimally hit your 1 rep max. When it comes down to it, it's mostly psychological. The most important thing is to make sure that you have the form down perfectly and to implement that on every one of your sets. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked it, be sure to leave a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe for more fitness videos. Comment down below what you want to see in the future, and I'll see you guys in the next video.